Hello and welcome to another episode of I'm Still Playing. So for this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. Actually, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be unlike anything that I've done before. And the reason is a video that I saw a few weeks ago. In this video, the developers behind zzzero, the MiHoYo developers, put together this combat mechanics video where they talk in depth behind the scenes about the combat mechanics that they built for Yuzuha and for Alice. And in this video, in one particular part, they talked about this particular process that they do for sort of really sinking in their impact effects in combat. Let's take a look at the segment, just a segment that they talked about real quickly.
给大家简单介绍一些有关打击帧的基础知识。在我们玩绝区零操作代理人打击到敌人的时候，大部分情况下代理人和敌人都会产生一个动画定格，我们称之为定帧。我们给定帧分了很多档，类似2帧、3帧、4帧、5帧，再往上。大部分时候，代理人和敌人定格的帧数会有区别。例如，爱丽丝的连续普攻命中敌人时，敌人的定帧会比爱丽丝的定帧少1帧。这样做的目的是让敌人会比爱丽丝先结束定帧，并早1帧开始动，从而先进入到受经验值的动画中，然后再被下一招打到，再次进入定帧，以此推进，直到连招的结束。这样一来，一方面角色的关键帧 pose 就会在玩家的视觉残留中定格得更久一点，另一方面敌人动得更多一点，可以更多的展示受击的反馈。虽然只是1帧的差距，但这样设置后，整段攻击的节奏是错落有致的，感受上也比较舒服。
Okay, so that's pretty in-depth and pretty cool, right? And I saw that and I'm like, I've never actually implemented this in any combat system that I've ever built, so I want to give it a try. And then I got to thinking, well, in order to do this, I really need to start from ground zero. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to start from absolutely nothing, even from, beginning with installing Unreal 5.6. So I'm going to install Unreal 5.6 and the free version that you can get from the marketplace. And then Unreal comes with a number of sample projects that kind of help kickstart you and get you going in the right direction. And so I thought, well, we'll start that. And what I want to do, the goal is to basically build enough of a combat system so that we can show attacks and we can show reactions from attacks. And then we want to implement their stagger locked frame system and see if it makes a difference. And so this is going to be a multi-day project, I suspect. I'm not even sure if this is going to be 1 video or 2 videos at this point. But I've got Unreal installed and I've got the sample project set up. So, and we're just going to go from there. So without further ado, here is building zzzzero's combat system and implementing their stagger locked frame system and seeing if it makes a difference. Let's go. Okay, wait, I lied. There was actually one more thing that I wanted to say before we get started. So this is not going to be a tutorial per se on building a combat system. I'm not trying to teach you how to do this yourself. However, though, I will be getting down into the nitty-gritty of all of my thought processes and the actual things that I change and the stuff that I do in order to get from where I begin to where I want to go. So if you are sort of really interested in seeing from a developer standpoint how these mechanics are built up and how some of this stuff is implemented and the thought processes around what in the hell we're going to do next, then I think you're going to have a good time. I think this might be able to, I think this will be very interesting. Anyway, okay, so for now, I'm saying for real, let's get started. I have created here in Unreal 5.6, what you're seeing in front of me, is the default third-person action game. You can use it from this, you pull it over from the samples, and it gives you just a starter kit, if you will, for third-person action games. And so it's already compiled. I built the C++ version of it because I'm going to be working primarily in a combination of C++ and Blueprints, and I've been doing this long enough that I have no qualms about doing the things in natively. Native refers to the C++ version of things. So in fact, you'll see right here, here is my editor running up. All I've used so far, 100%, with the exception of Visual Studio, which I have a license for, is the free version of Unreal 5.6 and the free 5.6 sample pack. Like I said, the sample for third-person starter kit. And they give you quite a bit. Let's take a look at what they give you. So here we are running an editor, playing an editor. But here, so they give you an orbital cam. So we've got first person, we have a player character, right? This is good old Mannequin that's used for tons of demonstrations and what have you. And the nice thing about Mannequin is there are a slew of animations out there for free on the PlayStation, on the Epic store that you can download for free and use, and they're all already pre-rigged to the Mannequin skeleton. So making use of the mannequin has kind of become the the de facto standard for, that's something that should be edited in post, right? De facto standard for both a rig, a skeleton, and an animation. So here's what they've given us right here. They've given us an orbital camera. So all I'm doing is moving the mouse around, and it's rotating around a fixed spot looking at the player character. And then a player controller that allows me to move the character around. I've got forward, backward, left, and right. You'll notice that this particular controller doesn't run backwards. You always move in the direction that the camera is facing, and forward arrow is always away from the camera. So by rotating the camera, and I'm not moving the keyboard's keys at all, I'm just moving the camera, I can change my orientation. This is a pretty standard third-person camera viewpoint. And the camera itself is pretty far out. It's on a swing arm, by the way. They attach a swing arm to the back of the player, and then an invisible swing arm, and then they attach the camera to that, and then they just rotate the swing arm around. That's how the standard third-person camera works for Unreal. And I've got jump, another animation set for jump, right? So we have jump, take off, we have falling, and then landing. And that's pretty much it. Very basic, forward, backward, left and right. You're always rotating. So this way they only have to support essentially one run animation forward, right? There is no backwards animation. There's no sideways. There's no diagonal. They just move you in whatever direction you're running, and you're playing that animation. So that really allows you a very minimal animation set. Okay. The way that Unreal sets up, the way that Epic sets up all of their demos now is they make use of a feature that they called, not really variants, but game features, game modes. And where you can find this is if you go to the world settings here for your particular level. Well, for one thing, you can see, like if I go to, in the content, right? Content, characters, I see, oh, look, here are some clues. There's a variant combat, a variant platform, and a variant side scrolling. Okay. Looking at the variant combat, which is what I would be interested in. Okay, so look, here are some blueprints that might be useful. Camera shake hit enemy, camera shake hit player, combat character, the game mode, and the combat player controller. Okay, that does seem useful. Here are some animations. There's a charged attack and a combo attack. An ABP. ABP stands for Animation Blueprint, in case you're completely new to this, which is a way that we describe how our animations interact with our skeletal mesh. And yeah, so look, look what I've got here. So I've got quite a nice little chunk of stuff I can make use of. And I want to say, oh, look, AI. Yes. A combat AI controller, a combat enemy spawner, some environmental. These are EQS queries that I can use for falling back and for flanking. That's basically a system by which they're building their AI on top of, and a state tree, a pre-built state tree. Let's take a peek at that state tree real quick. Oh, looky here. Okay. State trees are the new system that Unreal has introduced for 5.6. Actually, it came around 5.5. And they're essentially intended to replace behavior trees. So this is pretty cool. And yeah, we'll take a look at this and dig into a little bit further in that later. But it's good to know that it's here. Now, how to take advantage of it. All right, well, let's close down the state tree and set that over there off to the side. And what we can do is we can go to World Settings, Game Mode Override. I bet we can override this right here. If we go to Combat Game Mode and set that up, and then this basically will redefine the pawn class, the HUD, the controller, game state, player state, spectator pawn, all kinds of stuff, right? So let's just play with that. Look, we've got a different, oh, yeah. So now we have a different camera. The camera is slaved to the, it's basically pulled in much closer, and it's slaved to the back of the unit. So the unit rotates as I rotate, right? I'm still rotating the camera up, and I can move up and down, but I'm no longer orbiting around the player. The player itself automatically orients to my direction. However, though, oh, look, I've got more animations now, too. They hooked up a different ABP that gives us a little more combat-oriented animation set. So there's a forward animation, there's a backwards animation, which is just a reverse of the forward, but there's a side, and look, there's kind of a run backwards, sideways animation. I think there's just two animations, forwards and backwards, because I think this is, no, there's a blend here. They've got because my character's still looking forward as she runs to the side and back to the side. And if I can run this way, yep. So, and then, but you know what they took away? They took away jumping. not because I'm a slave to that nav mesh as I've seen in the past, but just because they've not incorporated that into the command set. And look, I've got this big fat hit point bar right in the middle of my character. And if I hit left click, I've got an attack ability. I left click and hold. No, right click. Oh yeah, right click hold is a channeling ability. As you can see, I'm channeling this and I'll let go. Ooh, mega punch. So that's kind of cool. So with just by setting up the new game state, I've got, oh, and this attack looks like a combo attack, right? So attack 1, attack 2, I do them in succession. It's a 3-hit combo total and then a step. And look here, not only am I attacking, but I'm advancing as I attack. 1, 2, 3, and then step forward. So in these abilities, they've got chaining together attack animations. They're sliding me forward with an advance. And then they, on the right click and hold, they have this cool charged attack. And that was what I thought I might see. But I figured I was probably seeing with their abilities, right? So that's pretty cool. Let's hit escape and get out of PvE. Now I saw in here a BP for an enemy spawner. So just for shits and giggles, I don't know anything about this right now, guys. I have literally just picking and choosing. But let's put down a spawner and just drop it in the level and see what we get. There it is, my green thing. Oh, look, and there's my guy. He spawned in. Okay, so there's a character. And it's got some kind of little AI hooked up to it because he's rotating to face me. And he's got a hit point bar, and we can see his state, which is idling. And, oh, I can punch him. Okay. So punching does damage, so he's damageable. He's got hit points. He's got a life. Punching him, basically, what punching is doing is providing a knockback, and the knockback is just a straight up physics and animation combined, right? And then they ragdoll him when he's dead. Oh, and he despawns and respawns. Yeah. So man, there is a lot here, guys. We've got a hit point system, got a damageable system. It spawns when we can kill things. When they die, they respawn. They respawn. Okay, maybe they don't respawn a second time. That's probably a bug. Is where I come from. This is what we call stuff that needs to be ironed out. Okay. Okay, so I've got an enemy, got a spawner. Put 2 of them out there. Hold the Alt key. You can Alt drag, and that makes a duplicate of whatever you currently have selected. There's your tip of the day for Unreal editing. I'm not really an Unreal. I'm not a level designer. I don't know a lot of things. Oh, there they are. But I wonder if I can knock one into the other. It doesn't really. Oh, wait, did he attack back? He tried to. Kind of fails because his EQS system is not. Look at him. This is. Oh, there he is. I wonder if he can do damage to me. If there's a. He can do damage to me and hit. Okay, so if I get close enough, I can force him into attacking. See, there's his attacking state. Do they all have this? Get really close? Yes, you do. You have to get really close. Use a channels attack. What happens with I die? Do I have that system hooked up? Let's see. All right. Oh, look, it's moved the camera, detached the camera away from me, which is really important. By the way, folks, one of the hardest things that people don't realize to program in any game is actually programming correctly what happens when you die. Because your player controller goes away, but your camera may still be attached to the player controller. So you want to detach the camera. Oh, and you may be firing an ability, and now your character has gone away. So your character's been yanked out from underneath your ability, which is still pointing to your character. Dying is the source of untold numbers of bugs throughout any game development cycle. This is just an absolute fact. And always it ends up being harder to build than what you expect it to be. So here are some things that I want to do. So in an effort to show this a little bit more completely, my ultimate goal here is to build into the attack cycle and the hit react cycle these states, these what they call them, frozen states, lock states, the lock states in from Hoya versus DevChat. I want to have a multiple. I want to be able to program the number of frames that the animation is locked, and I want the player to be able to lock for a single or multiple frames, and I want the AI to be able to be locked for single or multiple frames during the attack. I haven't decided yet if I want to modify this default behavior that they give me. I probably do. I'm not real happy because you can't really, the ragdoll knockback is not super visual. So I probably want to just replace that with maybe a pushback in an animation set or a single animation. But I think the player's punches attacks are fine. We can definitely take advantage of that. And my goal is to not build a whole freaking game here because I want to turn this into a video that I can get back to you guys in, I don't know, in a few days. So, and I also have a job that, and a full-time job and a family to take care of. So, and I have to make the video. So all of these things take time. So my goal is to not turn this into a multi-day project. But we'll see where we can go from here. I'm going to stop this video recording right now and spend a little bit of time digging into this further a little bit, and then I'll pick back up when I've made a little bit of progress and kind of show you what I've done so far. Okay, that's all for this particular segment. So before we go too much further, I want to refamiliarize ourselves with ZZZero's combat system because I think there's a couple of things that that are important that we want to point out because they're going to play into our demo later. Okay, so the first thing that I want to point out is I'm going to come all the way down here to this corner. Why am I coming down to this corner? And because ZZZ has an auto-targeting system that has a huge amount to do with the fluidity of their combat and why it feels so good. And I'm moving out of range of this character, so it finally takes me off of the auto-targeting system. And the reason is this so that we can do some places, so we can show some basic combat, and also we can look at the camera. All right, now ZZZ has an orbital camera, just like our demo does, right? You can see that the camera rotates around the character. If I rotate up and down around the character like this, and we're orbiting, we're on a swing arm, we're orbiting around the character. They do provide collision for the camera like any good camera system does, so that if I move against the wall, you can see how the camera collides against the wall and moves closer to the character. Same way if I move against the floor, it collides against the floor. That's just basic camera techniques, just good stuff to have. Let's take a look at some of our attack demos. Here's a single attack, okay? And here's a double attack, and here's the triple attack. Okay, so we're going to move towards the target here. We're going to look at some reaction animations here. All right, so there's my attack. Now I've acquired a soft target because I've attacked it. And this is really important because ZZZ does a lot with sort of taking control away from the player when they feel like it's appropriate. For instance, even though I'm looking in this direction, when I attack, my character turns and moves towards that target. It picks out for me. It's called a soft lock. And it soft locked this target so that even if I do any movement control at all, or even if I start to run away from this character, it's going to bring me back to that character and attack it. And that's really important, right? That's an important aspect of their combat system that may not be immediately obvious, but goes a long ways towards defining why their combat works. The last thing I want to look at real quickly is the flinch animations. Now, again, you saw in our demo that we were doing just sort of a knockback combined with a physical impulse thing. They're not doing any physics impulses here. Their combat system is 100% animation driven. And I'm going to show you. Let's watch her look at her first combat attack and look at the flinch, the reaction of this monster. So see, he flinches back a little bit and he steps back a little bit, and she advances. So you get both her advance and his back. Now, it wouldn't matter if I hit or not. I'm still going to advance, right? If I stand right here and I attack one time, I definitely advance. 1, 2, 3. Okay. But once I'm closer, I'm still advancing, and I'm knocking the monster back. So that's mostly what I wanted to touch on. One, that they use an orbital camera, okay? And two, that they have a soft targeting system so that when I'm facing away, I'm always being retargeted and drawing back to the enemy. And three, that they're using the flinch animations as their reaction system, which is important because you see that glow, I have to do E3 times. Because, well, you know, I'm an AMB player. What can I say? Because the lock frame animation system that we're going to try to build and we're going to try to develop is based on both the animation for the combatant, for the person doing the attacking, and the animation for the person receiving the hit react animation, because we stagger the frames between the two just a subtle amount to sort of reinforce the impact feel. So that's why it's really important that they're not actually doing physics-based animations. They're doing completely 100%, I should say, physics-based reactions. They're doing 100% animation-based reactions. Okay, let's get back to our demo. Okay, so we're back. It's a little after midnight because, that's when programmers get things done. I'm in my PJs, and yes, I'm definitely not wearing pants, but don't worry, I have no intention of getting up. And I've made some quality of life changes to our character, and I'm feeling a little bit better about where the character is and sort of moving into the next part of this, which will be the actual combat analysis. Okay, so let's talk about what we've done so far. Now, I discovered so let me back up a little bit. Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. We have two characters. They provide us with two characters by default, two character classes, right? Let's stop right here. So we have over here in Variant Combat, in Blueprints, we have our friend Combat character. And this is Combat character here. I'm going to open him up. I'll bring him over here. Okay, this is the blueprint for Combat character. And both these blueprints do the same thing. We have a camera boom. We have a follow camera on the camera boom. And we have some crazy shenanigans here that they're doing that basically are mapping the touch input if you're building for in Android or iOS. I'm just leaving all this in place. I don't really care. And then they map the touch input controls to some various functions that they've built on the combat character for looking around, charged attacks, etc., etc. Again, these are not actually called. This is called the input mapping, and I'm not going to delve too much into that right now. Look at the viewport. Here's our combat character, right? Nice. There's the camera. You can see, if I select the camera boom, you can see there's the camera boom that goes to the camera. It goes from the camera to the player. Now, this is already modified by me because what I did was, this one out of the way. Let's open up character. The other character that we have besides combat character is our basic third-person character. Yes, right there. BP third-person character. Here's BP third-person character, and you can see it's very similar. It has has a camera boom, has the follow camera, and now you'll notice that most of its settings are the same as combat camera. The reason for this was I wanted the camera controls for the third-person camera, not the default camera controls that were in the combat camera. Remember that combat character had the camera right over its shoulder, and when you rotated the camera, it would rotate the person to match the character. And I didn't want that because after we looked at ZZZero's combat, we saw that they have a pretty standard orbital camera. So we now have our combat character, right, which has our punch animations and does the punching things while on the animations. And we have, but the camera is located behind, and the character no longer follows the camera. We have a true orbital cam, and the character will move in whatever direction. This is essentially how ZZZ's locomotion works, right? Their camera motion and locomotion. Of course, they do a lot smoother job. They have start animations, stop animations, but for the most part, this is pretty similar to what ZZZ does for moving the character around. So the camera stuff is sorted. I've got a combat character with the third-person camera that I wanted. The other thing that I really wasn't happy with was the giant hit bar that was in the middle of the character hit point bar. And you can see it's still, the giant point bar is still there for the NPCs, for the AIs. But I really didn't want that hit bar in the middle. I wanted it as a part of the HUD. And you can see here, I come up here, you can see my HUD is right up here, right? I've got this hit point bar. And if I go down and allow them to attack me, it's updating the hit point bar. It's still working the same way as the hit point bar, but the hit point bar is no longer on top of the character. How did I do that? All right, well, let's review real quickly what I had to do. It's not too much, but it's worth reviewing. So I needed to be on the HUD, and what we want to do is overlay widgets on the HUD. Now, as you saw earlier class, right? Whenever you select a game mode, these are all the predefined classes that are set up for that game class, and you can tell it what HUD class. And what I needed to do is to create a new HUD class. So, and you've got combat HUD. Okay. So this is my new HUD class. It's derived from good old AHUD. And all it does is it provides a U widget called getLifeBar widget, which is the new widget that I wanted to add. It provides a pointer, basically instantiates a member of that LifeBar. Well, you can specify the class. What this is for is to allow us to specify the widget class we're going to use for the widget. And then this is a pointer to the actual widget itself. And then in the constructor, we say, hey, if I have the class and it exists, then the LifeBar widget, we're going to create a widget using that class. And then if we were successful in creating it, then we add it to the viewport. Easy peasy. And that seemed to work. And what I did was then I created a new, go back to combat here. I created a new HUD blueprint class derived from my new combat HUD. Open that up. Okay, click. All right. And then in the HUD, where I specified that life bar widget class right here, I specified a new life bar. Now, originally, I used the same life bar that the original player widget used, this one right here. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just use that class. It's already set up. If we navigate to it, and you can see here it is. Let me show you what it looks like. This is it right here, right? This is our HUD life bar widget. And you can probably guess what happened. So when I then went to go play, I'm like, all right, here we go. Oh, and I mean, it's working, right? It's, it's okay. It's not too bad, but it's a little bit much for what we want to do. And like, if I run down here and I'm convince him to see, he's doing damage. See, right? Like it's, so I'm like, that's not right. So I made a copy of HUD life bar. And I'm like, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to create a canvas and put the canvas in there, which is what I did. So there's my canvas, and canvas by default covers the entire screen, the specified alignment, and then the actual widget itself is in the upper left-hand corner of this. So now I've got a new widget, user widget, that incorporates a canvas and has that bar in the upper left-hand corner. And then I just kept all of the same functionality that was there, like for the graph. We have a BP function for set the percentage. We have a BP implementable functions for setting the bar color. And I kept those from the previous widget that I made. Okay, makes sense? Ah. So, and I remember, guys, I told you that, well, let's set this back, right? It's awesome. So, yeah, so what we want to do is set the HUD class to be combat HUD. Oh, and then the BP HUD combat HUD class. Here we are, combat HUD. You need to specify that to be combat HUD. Oh, here we go. Where is it? HUD life bar, not combat life bar. HUD life. That's why I couldn't find it. One of the huge problems is remembering what the hell you name things. This is the HUD life bar. Save that, move that back over to the side, and here we go. There's our HUD in the upper left-hand corner, nice little hit point bar. Now, the reason I'm midnight getting this wrapped up is that, remember I told you guys, life and death are one of the hardest things to configure correctly. Sure enough, when I moved the HUD I moved the hit point bar to the HUD, it introduced a new error. When I respawned, would crash the game. The reason is the order of being possessed by the controller and then begin play. And what I discovered was that, rediscovered, because this is the things you relearn every time you work on a game. When we would spawn from the controller, player controller would be here upon our initial spawn, and then we'd be able to cast to the HUD, we'd get our life bar widget, and we'd set the bar color, and we'd reset the hit points. Perfect. But upon what happens when you die is, and this is not the default control, like I said, this is the stuff that they put in. I didn't like this. But if you look at that controller, when you die upon destroy, what the combat controller does is it spawns me a new actor, and then after that actor is spawns, it possesses that actor. Okay? This is in the upon destroyed function of the controller, the player controller. That means there's a brief while the player controller, or while the player character is there, that it doesn't have a controller. So I'm like, oh, well, then what we want to do is we'll want to move all this code from out of here into unpossessed, which I created a new function or a new override for that. But that didn't work upon initial startup because the initial implementation, or the initial time that the player respawn, the unpossessed happens even before the HUD has a chance to call begin play and before the character has a chance to begin play. Because the HUD hasn't called begin play yet, it hasn't initialized the widget. As the widget wasn't initialized, this would fail as well. So I was failing in both cases, so I ended up basically handling it in both places. So in begin play, I'm like, hey, if the controller is here and the HUD is here, then we create our widget bar. And I explicitly nullify the life bar widget. And then in the case of possessed by, I'm like, hey, if you weren't successful if the life bar widget is still null, then now let's go ahead and do our initialization here. So then we get the player controller, HUD, life bar widget, and reset the widget. So we handle it in both cases. This works for both initial spawn and when the player dies. And again, it wasn't really all that necessary to completely fix this up for what we wanted to do, but I just wanted to show this because it's a pretty classic demonstration of it's the little things that you think should be hard that end up being a giant pain in the ass. Okay, I rambled on too long, but I feel pretty good about where we are tonight. One little thing I wanted to show you that's a nice touch. Their locomotion animation blueprint has inverse kinematics built into the footprints, which is nice. This is not physics, by the way. You may see some people talking about, ooh, incredible physics. It's not physics. It's just straight up good old IK. And what's funny is that you'll see the IK here, right, because we're in locomotion. But when we move to the montages, oh, no, see, montages just play. And my legs go straight and they're no longer being tied to ground. Not even close to the ground, right? Until I drop out of the animation montage and I come back down to the locomotion. Then locomotion uses IK to tie my feet. Just another one of those cool things. Another one of those pain in the ass things you have to deal with when you're making games. Okay. We're going to call it quits here for tonight. The next thing we're going to do is to look at how they're doing hit determination, because they are clearly not using the angle to apply physics of the punch. They're just applying it some kind of arbitrary way, which is terrible. And then once we figure out how they're actually doing hit collision, applying damage, then we're going to see if we can find us a nice React animation online somewhere. And so that we're not doing this half physics response for the hits that looks like ass. Instead, we're going to provide a nice React, because that's the next thing, is to provide a nice React animation. Because once we have a React animation for us and for the minion, then at that point we can then actually get around to building Hoyo versus locked frame pause, staggered pauses, and that's where we're going to hopefully see significant improvement of how the combat looks. Or maybe we won't. I don't know. We won't find out until we get there. Anyway, I'll pick this up tomorrow night. Talk to you then.